Austin and moving away. So I won't get down that way probably anymore. Although that's where Bill Summers lives as well.
I'll take your place. I'm going to try to go there more often now.
Yeah, good. So we know we're going to have an exciting report from our middle school folks. So Pete, I'll let you start, and then that gives Freya a chance to kind of step it up a little bit.
Actually, I think I'm starting.
No, but I don't mean to mess with your schedule.
All right.
Go ahead, Freya.
Yep. There you go. So everybody can see the screen. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Yes? Can you see the screen? All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the middle schools.
Freya, I don't think we can see the screen yet, or at least I can't.
It's just really slow.
There we go.
Yeah, it will take some time.
Thank you.
All right. So just to kind of start, if you've been experiencing the summer like I have, really so much of June and July were just kind of fuzzy and out of focus and hard to visualize what on earth was going to happen. And I know we were all just anxiously awaiting, and everyone we know is asking us, well, what's going to happen? And there's no answers, and it's kind of like, I feel like just in the past couple days, I'm really starting to see. It's like I can really start to visualize now. I can see kids' faces. I can see what the building is going to look like with kids in there. And it's kind of, it's great for me as a new principal now to be able to kind of know how potentially things may look. And I know we're going in that direction. So we're going to talk a little bit, Pete and I are going to talk a little bit about just kind of what the middle school will be focusing on this coming year, particularly in these uncharted times. So just want you to take a look at these quotes here. You know, these are from students. So she's my favorite teacher. Felt like she listened to me and I belonged. About a teacher, he's funny, even in his videos. He came to my soccer game and he talks to my table at lunch. And then 8th grader, I'm so excited for MHS. I love how we did assessments this year. I was able to do it in a way that really made sense to me. And then these are from parents. I would never have imagined the growth. She came home happy and excited, talking about her day. I was so anxious, but I can't believe how great this year was. So thank you. And if you didn't guess it, these are pretend quotes that don't exist yet, because we anticipate that these quotes are what people are going to be saying in June when we get to the end of this incredible year that it's going to be, you know, and I don't see a reason why this wouldn't be the case. I do feel like incredible things are going to happen this year. I think the elementary team used the word magic a lot. To me, magic is hard work plus imagination. So I think that's going to come to fruition. All right, so just to kind of summarize the year ahead for the middle school, 3 kind of themes that we're going to be looking at. The first one is well-being. These are aligned with our district goals as well. We want all students to feel safe, especially in times of a health crisis, connected and supported. So this means like proactive support, education, support from counselors, support from teachers, utilizing Relate and other outside services, as well as providing quite a bit of family education and family support, using child study to identify the students that need additional intervention. So if we're not in school full-time, who are the kids we need to bring in for increased intervention? So we were looking at the overall well-being and health of all of our students. The second area we're going to talk about is connection. And this is really students feeling included and a sense of belonging, but it's really a connection to content. Understanding where they fit in the content, seeing themselves reflected in curriculum, that they're part of it, that it's meaningful to them, as well as the culture of the school. They belong in the school, the culture is welcoming and inclusive. And part of this is PD for teachers, analysis of our curriculum, and really looking to make sure that all perspectives are included in our curriculum and students see themselves reflected in our curriculum. As well as, there's an election this year too. Our teachers need to feel safe and comfortable addressing conflict, addressing language that's inappropriate, and making sure that all students know that teachers have their back. I think that's what we've heard over and over from students, that's crucial. So we're going to be providing training for teachers on that. The other thing is, we've been listening a lot. I think this summer there's just been a lot of listening, hearing input from people. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about the action. I feel like we kind of know the direction we need to go. And we're all just rearing to get going. And so I'm excited about continuing to listen and then taking what we've heard and putting it into action. And the last one is just ownership. It's personalized pathways. Students really kind of owning their learning. If we're online, part of the time, all the time, there'll be a significant amount of engagement, self-motivation. So they need to see that rigor, and they need to be able to jump in and understand that this is their role, this is their learning, and they're gonna own it. So that's kind of just the overall 3 areas, 3 emphases, and I'm gonna hand it over to Pete.
So, really, I think this year for the middle school, it's going to be focused on 2 things. It's going to be how do we implement strategies during the pandemic to maximize our kids being safe and also our kids actually learning. And then again, how do we support the school board goals? So on that topic of pandemic strategies, as a lot of people mentioned earlier, it's just going to be that magic of teaching. How do you make these things happen within all the confines and all the restrictions that are going to be in place? And again, that's just that intangible magic that great teachers bring to a classroom. The bigger challenge is getting middle schoolers, expecting middle schoolers to behave in ways that middle schoolers have never behaved in the entire history of school. And again, every level has got challenges. The elementary has challenges, the high school has challenges, but at the middle school level, our challenges, I think, are just a little bit more unique because we're dealing with a kid that is just an innately social creature, and their needs to be able to socialize and connect are so intense. And so to ask them to walk 6 feet apart in the hallway and not connect and talk with their friends, that's a huge order. That's a huge task. Even to ask them not to touch each other is a huge task. And so, like I said, we're fighting an uphill battle in terms of asking middle schoolers to behave in ways that just innately they're not wired to behave. And in terms of how we communicate this out to families in the coming weeks, I think this is really going to require us to thread the needle. And here's what I mean by threading the needle. I think that I'm hearing a lot of parents talking about how they just want their kid back in school, or their kid is talking about how badly they want to go back to school. Well, why do you want to go back to school? I just want to see my friends. I want to be with my friends. I want to be able to hang out with my friends, which is true. But when they come back to school, whether that be in a hybrid or that be in an all back in school, it's going to be maximizing as much social distancing as we can possibly account for. So they're not going to be having lunch with their friends. They're not going to be hanging out in the hallways with their friends. They're not going to be hanging in the cafeteria before school. And so if kids and parents know this, to what degree will that change their thinking about whether they want to be in school or whether they want to be online? And so on one level, we don't want to scare parents or send the message that that school's going to be a prison and that school's going to be this sterile, unengaging environment. We don't want to send that message. But the flip side is we want to paint an accurate enough picture to our families that we don't have this wave of families after the first week of school that say, this is not what I thought school was going to be, I want to switch and go online. And so trying to thread the needle and find that balance in how we communicate to families, I think is going to be really critical, and we'll have to be really thoughtful in terms of how we communicate that. Freya, can you flip the next slide for me? Additionally, Freya talked about how we're going to be supporting the school board goals for this year, student well-being, excellence and belonging, and personalized pathways for learning. So going through those real quickly, the first, student well-being. So some of the things that we're thinking about for this year is, number one, trying to be more proactive in educational outreach to our students on issues related to stress, related to anxiety, related to depression. And leaning more on our counselors to deliver those proactive lesson plans through health classes, through our core classes, through advisory, increasing the awareness amongst our students and families about resources that we have available to support them, trying to increase students' comfort level and confidence in proactive self-help options that we have available for them, and then developing stronger collaborative relationships with community organizations, specifically with Treehouse and Relate, which are two organizations that we're pretty well established with at the middle school level right now. Next slide. Excellence and belonging. We're talking about kicking off a middle school chapter of the Belonging Committee that was started at the high school. Trying to prioritize staff development focused around things that our staff can do to create a stronger climate of belonging, inclusion, diversity, equity. Training for our teachers on how do they address these things and react to these things in their classrooms. And then again, also making sure that each of our students feels like there's a trusted adult in the building, that is their go-to adult, that is that adult that has their back. And then lastly is developing those personalized pathways for learning. Again, to us, that looks like needing to do more in prioritizing staff development focused on flipped classroom, on blended learning, on asynchronous learning. All of these strategies that will make it easier for us as a school to potentially shift between an e-learning model and a hybrid model and an in-person model. So the better our teachers get at making their room a flipped classroom, at incorporating blended learning and asynchronous learning strategies, the better we'll be able to fluidly move back and forth between those models. Providing our teachers guidance and trainings on strategies for adapting their curriculums and lesson plans in that way that is going to allow them to be more fluid. Looking at whether there's options for expanding Tonka online to middle school students, either courses that they would take concurrently during the school year or courses that they would take via a summer school model. And then lastly, expanding our strategies and options for better meeting the unique educational and social emotional support needs that we're starting to see emerge amongst our students, that we were noticing emerging even prior to COVID, and now it's even more acute what that need is. And we realize we need to do a better job of providing support and strategies for those students with these increasingly unique needs. So those are the things that the middle school plans to focus on this year. And then I'll turn it back to Dr. Peterson.
For Stephanie and Deanne to give us the real scoop here. Thank you, Pete and Freya. Wish both of you a great year, and it is going to be tricky for middle school students to stay apart. And I still like my idea of putting a truck tire around every one of them so they can't get within 6 feet of each other. But, so far you've rejected that idea. So any questions for secondary or for middle school principals? Okay, Jeff, I'll let you lead off with the high school report.
All right. Well, good afternoon. great to have the next hour and a half to kind of talk about some of the amazing things that are happening at the high school. And Darren is running the slide deck. I'm in the commons here. You can see that it looks like I'm glowing, but it's just actually the good lighting for me. And so I just want to walk through some of the key parts of the high school. As I think as everyone's mentioned, it was a wild end of the year, and most of my time was spent in this location. It was one of the best Father's Day gifts. I didn't realize I should have animals in my slide deck, so I quickly added this. And this is actually was a great gift from my kids, was a hammock, and that's my assistant, Ellie, and I'm taking care of business there at the lake. It was actually a nice little break in July. So it's been a crazy year. In my mind, we really should only be about June 15th because we graduated last week, and yet that's not the case. And I won't bore you more than an hour of photos, but just this is one of the best things that Jackie got us cued into as a candid photographer that we've used for events, and just awesome pictures. Here's a school board holding up a bank. Here is just the MCs and the students of this graduation. The group of this, they did this show 8 times, as well as we all did. But it really was a spectacular day. As Andy mentioned earlier, we also did the week before in the gym, we did 85 personal mini graduations, and to see grandma and grandpa come in and other family members for that ceremony, it finally felt for one day, it was a sense of normalcy. And so it really was a great piece. So just I'm going to go through a few photos. And I have had parents now, and I'll just pause on this one. I just want to do a shout out to Tim Roslin and all of the entire staff, because between each of the 8 ceremonies, we had to sanitize all of the chairs and get everything cleaned up and ready for the next one. And just, it was such a group effort to have all of these pieces come together and to make it all happen. So Jeremy Peacock was our building manager, and just amazing work to have that day come together. Low 80s, so it was a little bit warm, just some great photos of that day, and just great feedback from our community to make sure that seniors really had a proper send-off, and for them being happy that we weren't canceling one more thing. Dr. Peterson gave 8 speeches and talked about the success of this class and wished them well. This is a group of students, part of the Yo-Yo Club, had special uniforms made for the event, showcasing, really student leadership in different activities, and they're getting their group photo taken. They did get me a yo-yo outfit. I want to do a shout out to Andy, and this is one of his interns, Matthew. If you've not watched graduation, we've got 8 versions of it, so you can watch it and see how the speeches change from each one. I change one word in every presentation, so if you can let me know what those words are, you win. But I just want to acknowledge Andy and his team. We created 2 student videos because we didn't want the students performing live. So on the football field, we recorded 2 basically music videos, socially distanced, and put that together, and just all kinds of great work. So it was just a nice photo of one of the interns, but putting this together. Just a couple of things of last spring during what I learned from some of our students. One is they've created an entire Minecraft of the entire building is what they did during quarantine. At the very end of the year, they actually walked me through in this Google Meet, the entire building down to the finite details of the entire space. So there's our students in coding in action. And I don't know how many hours, hundreds of hours to put all this together, but you can actually see the entire building down to each specific room. So a lot of things happened last spring as we tried to have some normalcy. People talked about Instagram. We talked, and the idea of connection, we really had to work at a lot of different ways to maintain community. Everything from a contest for baking banana bread, Paul Twingy, who should not be pursuing anything musically in the future, singing a song, and just lots of ways to connect. Somebody asked what was the most popular Instagram post of the entire year, you might be wondering. Perhaps not. Is the next slide. Is this one was the most popular. And just interesting what people tuned into as I was busy taking care of business in this photo. But just using social media became such a critical tool for connecting with our community. As well, we're getting ready to welcome back our ninth graders, or welcome the ninth graders into the building. Last year we did our first virtual, and hopefully last, virtual day at the school. So they had a virtual tour of the building, and they had a chance to hear from outgoing seniors and incoming seniors about what advice. And we just leverage a lot of the different technology pieces to have that community continue. I want to just highlight a few things that we're working on, and just if you, Darren, you want to just click to the, I think it'll take us through the 3 goals. This summer we've spent, as Freya mentioned, quite a bit of time listening to our students, alumni and current students about our first goal of how do we make sure that all voices are heard. And you heard the reference to the Middle School Belonging Committee. And we are continuing to work through that process of making sure students feel heard, feel safe, feel that it's free of any kind of inappropriate comments, and working to address that. And I'm always reassured by our students and bringing the feedback and also their ideas of how do we make sure it's an inclusive place. Engagement, we're going to continue. Jackie mentioned earlier, probably one of the most interesting courses, and it will be depending how we launch it, is within our Momentum program, which is the new program that is going to be launched in a month, is our home renovation physics class. So this is taking on some elements of Vantage. So it's the idea of mentors, outside audience, application of information, application of content. So it's home renovation / physics. And in our first year launching this program, we have 80 students that enrolled in that class. So it's 2 hours, so they'll get a science piece. And they're pretty pumped about how that's going to come together, if they're going to build a tiny house, put on a deck at my home, and just different things that they're working on. So we're pretty excited about that class and really the launch of that program. And the last piece is really challenging students in all of our courses. We've got a whole new lineup in English, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, adding AP to the 10th grade option for students. So excited about that opportunity in challenging our students. Just this summer, learning doesn't stop, and this summer we have nearly 1,000 students in Tonka Online. So I always think that's a pretty amazing number of students that are taking a whole variety of courses. And even as we look to this fall and not knowing what everything will look like, really expecting a number of our students to choose the Tonka Online, even versus the e-learning that we had last year. So we're excited about that option, and 1,000 students doing Tonka Online. I'm going to just, one of the highlights last year was just how we managed the schedule. I'm just going to click through a couple. So I'll hit the next one. Next one. Just a lot of how we use technology to connect with staff. I just want to highlight a couple of things that happened last spring in a couple of our programs. I'm going to click one more ahead. Music, even how they use different tools. If you look at our graduation, we had the choir sing the final song at graduation. They did it virtually, and it's a pretty moving presentation. We had a couple of choir songs that they did that so they could have some form of a concert in normalcy. I'll keep going here. I just want to highlight one more. Research. One of the things we're working on is, last year was a symposium, was that typically the entire commons would be filled with posters and kids talking about their work. This year we did it on Zoom, and Ann Hansen, Diane Runquist, and the leaders helping put that together, and had a chance to sit in on all those presentations. And while it was different, it was authentic, and they were equally proud of the work. And they sometimes they felt like they even had greater success on some areas of their projects because people had time to take their surveys when in the past they might not have done so. But I was impressed with the creativity of our team. And then obviously we're looking at this fall, how do we make sure that research continues and making sure they have access to the classroom and the lab, and how do we do that safely? I'll keep going. The final pieces before I have Ted give a quick update. Vantage really continued to thrive last year. All but one project took place. They had tons of guest instructors, and sometimes it was easier because it was done virtually. And I think one of the most interesting facts, this is Tim Meester, and it was the first time I've ever used the word bidet at a school board meeting, but I was able to work it in because Tim Meester here was doing a presentation and works for Kohler, and talked to the kids about the fact that the bidet sales had taken off so much that Kohler could not keep up with the production. So kids found that entertaining once they knew what a bidet is. and that it's taking off in sales. So we continued all the great authentic learning and really set the stage for this fall, whatever it looks like, to make sure that, while different, businesses are obviously operating virtually, and students are still able to do the great projects and to do that work. And we're going to keep rolling here. Still rolling. Still rolling. Tech Ed had quite a bit of things that happened. We really, with the work in communications, there was a huge amount done in over the year, but really in 3 months to launch the entire Momentum program. And Tech Ed classes continued. This kid built a table for his family. And so they found a lot of creative ways to still make sure that class happened. Keep rolling here. Keep rolling. Special ed as well, labs, we'll keep going. Remote art sites. So depending how things look, we can continue that. FACT still continues. Students did all the different projects and that as well. AP really on a dime switched all their assessments to online and gave students still that positive experience to showcase what they know. We'll see what this fall brings as we look at all of our other assessments that we'll be giving. This group was repurposed as the Hall Paras and the Hall Para group, and actually they did all of our attendance. And so if any student was not online, they got a phone call home. And that first day in April, that was pretty exciting for the students who didn't log in or told their parents that they logged in yet were playing Fortnite, that they had a personal phone call wondering how things were going. So a lot of creative things we learned how we can do things and really even provide a more personalized service for a larger high school. We mentioned Momentum. I talked about that, so we'll keep rolling here. Over to Activities Director Ted Schultz, who is in a remote location with the pool. Ted.
That's right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Great presentations today, and just a few quick slides for you. Keeping with Jeff's theme of how we connected over the spring, many examples there of online meetings, school challenges. One of the most enjoyable things Jeff and I were able to do is go visit senior awards at students' houses and present them with senior signs and the awards and interview them into a show. We did some virtual signings. On the bottom right there, you see our Alpine coaches doing a May Alpine training and to try to keep the kids engaged. So as we shifted, as everybody else has this spring, to keep students engaged and saluting those seniors with signs and things to make it a great experience for them. It's train in the background for you. Next is our PLC work on mental health. We continue with that journey that we started last year. Our book focused on what made Maddie run on the left there. And then this year it's My Living Will. And two really unique, tragic stories about how the mental health challenges affect the high school student. And our coaches have been in 4 to 5 PLC groups and studying those all summer. They've had 3 meetings already virtually. Also, we are doing parallel studies with Wayzata High School. They're following the journey with us. We hope to have the author of My Living Will scheduled on the 19th to do a Zoom with both coaching staffs and to discuss, again, some of the continuing evolving concerns of mental health, especially in this pandemic, with our high school students. And again, 2 books. If you have high school students, if you're a high school coach, if you're a high school teacher, and you understand the complexities